Hello and welcome to Politics here on France 24. For years, he had warned that one day he would speak, and when he would speak, the French Republic would shake. Well, that day has finally arrived. Robert Bourgi, a shadowy middleman between French president and some of their African peers, threw a bombshell last weekend when he claimed that a number of leading French politicians, first and foremost, former President Jacques Chirac, received millions in cash from African leaders to help finance their campaigns. So with me to discuss this very explosive issue on the set is Michel Rambo, who is a former French ambassador to Mauritania, Zimbabwe, and Sudan. Also on the set, Billy Okadamari, who is a journalist with Radio France Internationale. And last but not least is Paul Vallet, who is a professor of international relations at Sciences Po here in Paris. So let's just watch a short report about what Robert Bourgi had to say about French politics.
It reads like a story on the murky dealings of France's government. But according to this lawyer, this is fact and not fiction. Robert Bourgi is a specialist in Franco-African relations, and while working as an advisor to former French President Jacques Chirac and his Prime Minister Dominique de Villepin, he claims the two men received huge sums of money from African leaders.
Moi, je sais que pour ce qui me concerne,
what I know
j'ai à peu près,
is that around $20 million
de dollars, ce que j'ai remis à Monsieur Chirac
was passed to Jacques Chirac and Dominique de Villepin between 1995 and 2005.
The allegations first surfaced in an interview with the French weekly Le Journal du Dimanche. Bourgi doesn't know where the money is now, but says some went towards financing Chirac's 2002 presidential campaign.
Is it heavy? Chirac asked when I went into his office. He took the case, went to the glass cabinet at the back of his office, and put away the wads of notes himself.
Villepin, a potential candidate in France's elections next year, denies the claims.
These allegations are very serious, they're scandalous and shameful. Yes, they're detailed like a bad police novel. It's disgraceful, and that's why, like Jacques Chirac, I will press charges against him.
Bourgi now works for current French President Nicolas Sarkozy and says the cash gifts have stopped.
Michel Rambo, it reads like a novel, but is it reality? Or was it reality?
Well, I don't know, but it's likely to be a reality. I don't know. I was not there, of course, but I think it was one of the ways and means that were used in the, well, not financing, campaigning or in financing political parties, I don't know. But anyway, in the framework of the special relationship between Paris and, well, many Western African and French-speaking African capitals in the past, I think that it is changing very, very quickly, but it was the reality, I think, including during the recent years. But I think that the rule of the game at that time did not make a scandal out of it, because it was not it was tolerated. It was not permitted, but tolerated.
But let me ask you, I mean, you were not there, but you're a French diplomat specialized in Africa. Was it known among French officials that there were cash donations, illegal, if those were the cases, going from some African leaders to the...
I am not an eyewitness, of course, but what I read and what we heard about the matter is that it could happen, that we read so many things in books, reviews, magazines, and newspapers, and listened to many news about in the same...
But also in diplomatic cables or things like that?
In diplomatic cables, of course. No, it was not a subject for diplomatic cables, no. It was not, no. But on the personal background, we could, well, suppose that whether it was a part of the reality, even not, I repeat, I was not an eyewitness, I have no evidence, and maybe it is not true, but I think it is likely to have happened in the past. It was considered as being one part. I think that if it is, well, showing off at this time of the history, it's because of well, the electoral purpose of the next presidential election in 2012. Of course, I think there is the close linkage of between what Mr. Bourgi did say and well, this presidential election. I think it's well, to make a counterfeit to all the allegations that were announced, expressed anyway before about the election in 1995, about 1997, and right now between 1992. I think it is one part of the game.
Billy, okay, Mary, two things. First of all, this describes a reality Mr. Bourgi claims has stopped when Nicolas Sarkozy arrived at the Élysée Palace. So does this describe a reality, and has this stopped?
It's probably because there has been far much scrutiny in the last few years here in France, questions asked about electoral financing. But I think, as the ambassador says, it's not a very earth-shaking revelation. There was always suspicion that this has been happening in the context of the special relationship with some of the African, Francophone African countries, not all, because if you're looking here, the allegations are basically from involving countries like Gabon and Omar Bongo, the former Zaire with Mobutu Sese Seko, and a couple of others. Some of the countries were not, the leaders of those countries didn't have as much of this special relationship and as much cash to throw around. But, you know, it's the murky world of politics there. And then again, as the ambassador said, why is it surfacing now, just ahead of the elections in 2012? But the suspicion has always been there that this money changes.
But suspicion is one thing. If you have the bagman, literally, Robert Bourgi says, I was coming to the airport with bags of cash, or sometimes was hidden in bongo drums, saying, this is what I did. That's what's really unusual, you know, spilling the beans.
Exactly, that's what's unusual. And for the first time, somebody talking at, you know, spilling the beans, as you say there, does he have any more proof beyond that? But the mere fact of saying that is quite something that will leave lots of questions for people to answer.
Paul Vallée, what's your read on this?
Well, probably two remarks. First, as we've just been pointing out, at the moment, all we have is declarations or a confession from this actual person. So, of course, that remains very thin evidence on which to actually lay or build any kind of a
There is
case.
a preliminary probe opened by the Paris
and
prosecutor's
indeed,
office, I should add.
that is now going to be the work of the inquiries. But perhaps maybe an impertinent remark in this context, and that is that since this story has actually broken, we've not seen the same kind of caution or reservations in the treatment of the story as what we've had in a recent case that was not one of monetary misconduct by Senior Frigger, but sexual misconduct, during which case everyone, when the story broke out, was falling over themselves to remind themselves that there's a that the accused is usually presumed innocent. Right here, what we see where it involves money, immediately people have been drawing conclusions about the high probability of this happening. And why is this also high probability? It's also what we've underlined. This affair highlights the general problem that's inherited of a structure of practices and methods in the management of Franco-African affairs, and again, we're dealing here more specifically with specific countries of Francophone Africa, and that is the Fifth Republic practice that has been the central role given to the presidency of the Republic and to the Élysée staff in the management of such affairs. So very few checks and balances and accountability or transparency in the management of these relations.
Diplomacy.
Including by diplomacy. It was not a diplomatic channel anyway. No, I think it is very important, by the way, to insist on the fact that those are allegations and suspicions and declarations, but there is no evidence. I think this is between Mr. Bourgi and the justice to set the right solution to verify, to clarify whether it is true or not. It is not our problem today around this table.
Why does he do this today? Because he burns his bridges with many African leaders who are probably not going to want to see him. with Jacques Chirac, Dominique de Villepin, and maybe with Nicolas Sarkozy. So some people are saying it's because he is being sidelined. Is it?
No, please.
Yeah, it's probable. It's probably because he has been jilted in one of the dealings relating to this. But I mean, don't forget that some of these allegations have been made at times without proof. During the course of the Libyan conflict, remember, Saif al-Islam also claimed that he financed President Sarkozy's, or Libya financed President Sarkozy's campaign, and he was going to provide proof. He hasn't provided. Perhaps he was trying to blackmail France into not continuing with the NATO operations in Libya. But what is the motive here for Robert Bourgi? We still don't know. Is he an attack dog